Welcome back to Hobby Universe Outdoors. I'm Len. Today I'm going to be doing a 200-hour review on this John Deere 2025R subcompact utility tractor. I've had this for a few years now and I've used it for a wide variety of tasks, and I thought this would be a good opportunity for me to talk about my experience with the tractor, the good, the bad, things I appreciate, things that maybe I wish were a little bit different, and overall what my experience has been. Before I get too far into the video, I just really quickly wanted to talk about why I chose the 2025R. So as far as John Deere, I pretty much knew out of the gate that I was going to get something from John Deere. I like the name, and it's just always been my preference. I did look at a couple other brands, and there are some really great options out there. So it doesn't have to be a John Deere. But for me, I was biased going into it, so pretty much just made a beeline for the John Deere dealership. I looked at 3 different series. I looked at the 1 series, 2 series, and I also looked at the 3 series. Had a ballpark idea of what each cost, and quickly ruled out the 3 series, primarily based on price. While I would like to have that extra power and that larger tractor, I just couldn't justify that significant price jump to go from a 1 or 2 series all the way to the 3 series. I have about 10 acres that I manage, and it's almost all wooded. So I know I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the woods and, bouncing around back there, but not enough where I could justify spending that extra on the 3 series. The 1 series is great, basically the same tractor as this, except the tire size is larger on the 2 series. I wanted that extra ground clearance. That's why I chose the 2025R over the 1025R. And I will talk about that a little bit more once we get rolling on this video. There are a few different tire options you can look at when you're picking out your tractor. I went with the R3, which is somewhat of a hybrid between a regular tractor tire and a turf tire. Not going to go into a ton of details about the tires, but I will do an in-depth video down the road specifically about what the options are and the advantages and disadvantages of each. But again, this is the R3. It's done a great job in the snow. It doesn't wreck my yard. It does a good job in the mud. And with that being said, I did get pretty hung up in the mud over the summer. It was really bad, but it wasn't the fault of the tire or the tractor. That was simply user error and me putting the tractor somewhere where I shouldn't have. Took a little bit of work to get it out. Other than some hurt feelings, we got the tractor out, cleaned up the mess, and kept on working. Keeping the back end on the ground when I'm using the loader or the forks is obviously very important. Now I do have a bracket on the back where I can hang suitcase weights. That comes in handy. But before the tractor even left the dealership, I had them add something to the rear tires called rim guard. Now there's other options. You can fill these tires. There's a lot of different things you can use. If you look online, you'll see that. I went with rim guard for a few different reasons. One is it's non-corrosive, so it's not going to corrode or cause rust on the inside of the wheels. It's non-toxic. So if I'm in the woods and I happen to, slice the tire, or the tire were to pop off the bead of the wheel and that fluid were to spill out, it's non-toxic. It's not going to hurt the environment. That's very important. And it's actually heavier than water. So, the rim guard is somewhere between 10 and 11 pounds per gallon. So you're going to get that added weight for every gallon you can fit in here. And it's worked out really well so far. The operator area of the tractor is really well laid out. Everything's easily accessible. There's nothing that I wish was in a different spot. Something that I just figured out just recently was that anything that is related to the motion of the tractor is going to be orange. So the gear selector is orange, the throttle lever is orange, the parking brake release is orange. It's not a big deal. I don't think it really matters what color the stuff is, but I thought that was kind of a neat little detail that up until recently I had overlooked. One thing they put on that I think a lot of people probably appreciate, but for me it doesn't really matter, is going to be tilt steering. So if you pull up on this lever, you can adjust the position of the steering wheel. If I was going to be mowing for a long period of time or on the tractor, for an hour or 2 or whatever it is, then maybe I'd pull that wheel back. The majority of what I do, I'm going to be on and off the tractor frequently. So having that wheel back and having to push it forward every time is just going to slow me down a little bit. I primarily leave the wheel forward all the way. that gives me the room I need to get on and off the tractor without having to worry about moving that thing. This tractor has an ROPS or ROPS or rollover protection system that comes with it. And that's not going to be specific to this model or even John Deere. I believe most tractors that come out nowadays have one of these systems. And I'm actually glad it has it. As I mentioned earlier in the video, this tractor feels a little tippy sometimes because it's taller, but it's not very wide. It's somewhat narrow. So having this up here helps me feel a little bit safer. Now, ideally, you don't want to roll the tractor over, but if something bad were to happen, then this could help keep you safe. It's very easy to manipulate. It's got these pins on it that I can pull out and I can fold it down. So that way I can fit it into my tractor shed, or maybe there's a low branch I need to clear. It takes just a couple seconds. I can lower that, get it out of the way, clear what I need to clear, and then get it back up into its safe position. It's got a decent quality seat on it. I do have a seat cover on mine just to protect it. But overall, I've got no complaints on the comfort of the seat. It's nice, soft. The suspension underneath works really well. And armrests are adjustable. You've got these little knobs you can raise or lower these depending on how high you want the armrest. So not a whole lot going on here, but overall the seat is good. As far as the lights go, I don't do a whole lot in the dark, so I don't get super excited about those. But for what they are, they seem to work pretty good. You have your flashers, which if you're on the road, it's always a good idea to have those on, of course. And then headlights, which are good enough. I've been in the woods with them after dark, and they made it fairly easy to see. And then you also have these fender-mounted utility lights. These are good as well. They'll help out quite a bit. One place I would like to see additional lights would be in the rear of the tractor. I back into my tractor shed almost exclusively. So, you know, if it is getting dark out or it is dark out and I'm trying to back in, I really can't see what the heck I'm doing that well. So I might install some little LED reverse lights, nothing fancy. That way I could at least see where I'm going when I'm backing up the tractor. Other than that, I don't see a need to really add any additional lights. I know there are some kits available and you can add LED lights or swap out the existing bulbs with LEDs. Again, I don't use it after dark enough to bother investing that time or money to do something like that, but there are options available if you'd like to. One thing I knew for sure I was going to want on the tractor was the front loader. And, you know, I've honestly got to believe that 95%, maybe more of the tractors that are sold come with the front end loader. That's going to be one of the most versatile tools you'll have on these tractors. And for me, that's where it really shines. With that being said, I do wish I had some additional capacity with the loader of this tractor. If I would have went with the 3 Series, then yeah, I would have had that extra capacity. But again, I couldn't justify the price difference to go from a 2 to the 3 Series just for that. So I'm happy with it. I have to work within its limitations. That's fine. With all of that being said, I'm still kind of wondering if maybe I'm not getting all of the power I'm supposed to be out of that loader. I still feel like it's lacking a little bit. I know there are ways you can adjust the hydraulic pressure to gain power in that front end loader, and I might look at doing that. But before I do that, I want to test it. I want to see what kind of capacity do I actually have, and if it is below where it's supposed to be, then I'll mess with those hydraulics and try to get that raised. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail about that now. I'll make that a separate video. That'll be down the road a little ways, and I'll show you the test and any adjustments I make, so before and after, and what all that looks like. One thing they did, which I certainly do appreciate, was they put the loader control in what I feel is a good spot. I've seen some other tractors where that loader control was more towards the front of the tractor, so you're reaching out, you're leaning, your shoulders extended while you're working that controller for the loader. With this, you can simply lay your arm across the armrest. Your hand is naturally going to fall right on that loader control, and I think that's going to help reduce fatigue. The way the differential on these tractors works is, unfortunately, it's going to provide power to whichever tire in the rear has the least amount of traction. Seems counterintuitive. There is a reason for it. It has to do with the turning radius and so on. I'm not going to get into that here. But I will say that if you're in a spot and you have really good traction with this tire, and this tractor tire is maybe on a patch of ice, well, the one that's on the patch of ice, if it starts to slip, that is the one that's going to get the power. If you find yourself in a situation like that, you've got this lever down by your left foot. And if you press that down, it'll lock those rear tires so they both receive the same amount of power. And in most cases, that will get you out of trouble. One thing I noticed, and it's not specific to John Deere or the 2025R, is if I'm in four-wheel drive and I make a tight turn in my yard, it will tear up the grass a little bit. Or if I'm on a paved surface or packed dirt, again, four-wheel drive, trying to make a tight turn, you can feel it binding in the drivetrain of the tractor. So for those reasons, I try not to use the four-wheel drive when I'm on those packed surfaces or in my yard if I can do it safely. Safety is always going to be number one, but if I don't need it in those instances, I won't use it. Other than that, four-wheel drive has been absolutely flawless. I've had zero hiccups, and it's kept me out of trouble, and in some cases gotten me out of trouble. One area I feel is a little bit lacking is going to be the toolbox or storage for tools and other things. You've got this very small toolbox at the front of the tractor. There's really not a lot of room in here. I've got a rag and a couple wrenches and some little things, but I really wish there was a better option for storing tools on these. I have seen some videos where people have used ammo cans and some other things and located those on different places of the tractor to add that extra storage, and that's something I may have to look at in the near future. One of the things I mentioned early on in this video was how this tractor felt a little bit tippy, and that's because it's not very wide and it is a little bit taller. To get away from that, or to help resolve that, you can actually add spacers to the back wheels of the tractor, increasing the width or the stance, and that'll give you some added stability and help remove that little tingly feeling I get in my stomach whenever I go into a little bit of a hole or something with one of the rear tires. But I do have the spacers. It's simply something I've got to get around to putting on, and when I do that, I'll make a video and do some before and after stuff as well. So far, maintenance on the tractor has been very straightforward. There haven't been any surprises. I am due for the 200-hour service. The tractor has about 212 hours on it, so I'm a little overdue, I guess. But that's something I'll be doing soon, and when I do, I'll make a video of that. But outside of that, checking the fluids, hitting the Zerk fittings with grease every once in a while, like every 8 hours is what I ballpark try to do. Really, I have no complaints on the maintenance. Accessing the engine compartment's pretty easy. You take a key or something similarly shaped, you stick it in this little hole on the side, and when you do that, that releases the hood. You're able to open it up and you get access to the engine compartment. If by chance you need to get in here a little bit deeper and you want to get increased access to the engine compartment, these panels are really easy to remove. And now you've got great access to the engine. You can do this on both sides. As far as cold weather performance, I've had zero issues with it. Literally just a couple days ago, it was 6 degrees Fahrenheit, which is like minus 14 Celsius, I think. That's very, very cold. Simply turn the key, let it set for a few seconds, get that glow plug warmed up, start it. It did protest a little bit. It spit and sputtered a little until it was warmed up. But after 5 or 10 seconds of running, I was able to throttle up, took it out. Zero issues. So cold weather performance, not a problem. One part of the tractor that I use a lot more than I thought I would initially is the 3-point hitch system on the back. I knew I'd get some use out of it, but it's just so much more than what I initially thought. And to be honest, and now that I say it, it's actually true of the entire tractor. I knew I was going to be able to do a lot with this and get a lot of use out of it, but I do a lot more with it than I initially thought. I'm always finding new ways where I can use it to save my back or make a job a little bit easier. So that's appreciated. One thing I will say about the 3-point hitch system on this tractor is its inability to really lift the attachment I have on the back high enough. I always wanted a little bit more lift height. When you buy these, you get an adjustable top link and the other top link is non-adjustable. I read that if you replace the non-adjustable top link with another adjustable matching the other side, you would gain that extra lift height. I did it. It was like $100. It was super easy to do, and I absolutely gained lift height. Now I'm going to make a separate video of that, and I will do a before and after showing how much lift height I had and then how much lift height I ended up after making that quick change. That way you can kind of look at it and see if maybe that's something that would benefit you as well. One attachment I did struggle with on the back of the tractor using the PTO and the 3-point hitch system was a post hole digger. I put in a fenced yard for my dogs. That was like 18 holes. There was a whole bunch of holes I had to drill there. I put in a trellis. There were a few holes and a couple other small projects. What I found is that if the auger would dig too aggressively, or if it would start to screw itself into the ground and kind of get stuck, the tractor hydraulics didn't have enough power to pull that auger out of the ground. If it was firmly embedded and screwed into the dirt, it just would not pull it out. Fortunately, I didn't run into anything too severe. I was able to work my way through it. And a lot of that has to do with being patient and working within the capabilities of the machine and the limitations of the machine, and also paying attention and listening to the tractor and the RPMs and watching the post hole digger and knowing when to stop and readjust. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that here, but I do have a separate video where I put in a trellis and I show how I use the post hole digger and some of the issues I ran into. So if you're considering a post hole digger, or if you want to see what that looks like, you can find that video in my video list. One other item that I wanted to talk about during this review that's not currently installed is the backhoe attachment. I did get the 260B backhoe attachment when I got the tractor. The deal they had was 0% financing, and I was able to roll that backhoe attachment into that deal. So I figured buy once, cry once, just get it out of the way. But also, and really more of a reason, was the fact with how I operate. I do a lot of things kind of last minute or unplanned. So, maybe I'm out in the woods monkeying around and I decide I want to do something, or I need to put in a ditch or whatever that is. Well, I could back the tractor into the shed and I could have the backhoe on here in 5 to 10 minutes and I'd be in business. The other option, if I didn't get the backhoe, would have been to just rent a mini excavator whenever I needed to do something like that. And you could rent a mini excavator many times over instead of paying for that backhoe. But, again, for me, I just wanted to have that piece of equipment available to me on my terms when I was ready to use it, regardless of how long I wanted it, when I wanted it, how many hours I wanted to use it. And, I don't regret that purchase at all. I have used it to remove a few stumps over the past few years. I put in some ditches. I put in a few culverts. And I also use it when I'm processing firewood. I actually use it in the thumb grip, and I'll hold the log up in the air at about waist level. And that way I can use my chainsaw and I can cut the logs off rather than having to bend over, which absolutely kills my back. So, just little things like that. It really makes a difference. So while you can't see it on there, I do have the backhoe. I love it. And if you can swing it, I do recommend it if you think it's something you can use. And I do have a couple videos out there as well in my video list where I remove the backhoe, put the backhoe on. I've got one where I actually remove a stump, and I'm using something called a ripper tooth from a company called Be Expanded. And I thought that was pretty cool. So if you're into stuff like that, you can find it in my video list. You should check it out. One of the first things I noticed I was hearing a lot of when I started looking at these tractors initially was there were a lot of comments about people saying, it's underpowered, it doesn't have enough power, I need more lifting capacity in the bucket loader, or I need to be able to run a larger implement on the back, or the backhoe. Like I have the backhoe, I love it. The backhoe attachment's just not strong enough, I need a bigger tractor. And that's great. If you need a bigger tractor, then get a bigger tractor, that's okay. I bought this knowing that I was going to have to work within the limitations of the machine. And when you're trying to decide what tractor it is you want to buy, make sure you keep that in mind. You've got to understand, if you've got a big stump in the yard and you want to be able to get that out, you would be able to do it a heck of a lot faster with a 4 Series tractor, maybe even a 3 Series tractor, or heck, why not a full-size case backhoe if the sky's the limit on with what you want to spend. That's not the case with me. This made sense for me financially. As far as where I have to store it, a 3 Series actually wouldn't fit where I put this thing, so that was something else I had to consider. The important thing to remember is you just have to work within the limitations of the machine. You have to understand, if you're going to pull a stump out and you're going to use this to do it with the backhoe, it's going to take you a few hours. With, the case backhoe, again, you reach in, you grab it, you pull it out. That's awesome. Good for you. That's not what this is going to do. So if you see a lot of those comments where it's underpowered, no, It's not underpowered as long as you know how to use it. It's going to take a little bit longer to get things done, but it's priced accordingly. It's not a monster machine. Use it the way it's supposed to be used and everything's going to be fine. I'll get off my soapbox now and we can move on. When trying to decide what size tractor you should get or what model or even what brand, the best advice I could give is do a lot of research. Watch those YouTube videos. I watched hours and hours and hours of YouTube videos trying to figure out what tractor was going to best fit my needs. I spent some time at the dealership and I talked to them a little bit as well. But in all honesty, while they were able to offer some technical specifications as far as real world use, I found the videos to be a much better resource for that information. You're going to hear a lot of noise. You're going to hear people say, oh, Kubota is better than John Deere, or John Deere is so much better than Kubota. It's all noise. Don't listen to any of that crap. Ultimately, you've got to find out what will work best for you, and figuring out what you expect this thing to do for you and what you're comfortable spending your money on. Because when it comes down to it, that's exactly what's happening. You're the one writing the check. So screw people that say Kubota's junk. If you want Kubota, buy Kubota. Or people that say you got to pay the John Deere tax. It's a ripoff. I've heard it all. It's ridiculous. Your money, you get what you want to be happy. For me, I'm happy with this tractor. Again, I'm not saying this is the model you should buy. This fits my needs. Knowing what I need to be able to do with it and how I hope to grow and learn, it's the right option for me. And that's what you need to do. Again, lots of YouTube videos. Talk to people if you got friends with similar equipment. Talk to your dealer. Make the best decision you can. That's my 200-hour review of the John Deere 2025R. I hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned something. If you're not already a subscriber and you like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Again, thanks for taking the time to watch. Be safe. Enjoy the rest of your day.